Gosh, I think this is legit the last video you'll watch for us for the year. That's crazy. But I promise to keep this short. This is just, as promised, a few final words as you get together for your final assessment for the year. Now, remember, we already did things in class, whether it is the video for AP Gov, which all came out wonderfully, or the Actively Learn for U.S. History 1 Honors, and you sort of know how you did, and most people did very well. So keep that in mind, that while you should prepare for this should not be something that you're up hours going crazy stressing over. All right. So here's some last minute tips. Like I said, you want to put a little bit of preparation in. Each class got documents. So the AP Gov has President Washington's farewell address, and U.S. History 1 Honors has the response to the color delegation by Frederick Douglass, and Thaddeus Stevens' Reconstruction speech from 1867. So you want to make sure you're familiar with those, whether you read them for word, you just quickly go through them, you look online for summaries or videos on them as well, and make sure you annotate them as well. In fact, I would take them out now. So anything that I write on, that I go over, you can actually write on the document. So pause this if you need to get that out. Also, for US 1 Honors, I would make sure you've seen the video, the reconstruction video on some of those documents. If you have not seen that yet, go ahead and do so. Or if you just played it fast forward to fill out the form, maybe go back and watch that. So what I want you to think of this is glorified journal entries. Think of it as writing a couple of journal entries. We've been doing that all year. Both classes are very skilled at going through primary source documents, analyzing them, and then responding them in your journal entries. So I want you to think of it like that. And just like journal entries, I sort of grade them on standard space grading. I'm going to grade this the same way. So effort does matter. But if you're like blown away, like, wow, you obviously did spend a lot of time preparing for this, you really know your document, you're connecting it to great things, you're answering the questions, then you get the 4. If it's like, wow, this is solid, they understand the content, that's a 3. Okay, so that's still, like, remember, so if it's a 10-point question, you get a 9, right? And then, so think of it, that way. And so hopefully you get a 3 or a 4, a 2. Since it's only 25%, a 2 is not going to kill you either. So keep that in mind. Now, here's all the what ifs. What if you get to school and you forget your documents? You know what? As long as you've remember what they're about, don't stress over it. What if you're at home and you're like, I've lost my documents? You can go online and print out copies of the documents, and you can go online and find them. If you want to find me in the morning and I can sign off on it, that's fine. What if the proctor says you can't use these, even though she signed them? Have them email me, or you email me. What if they still won't let you use it? Write that on top of your answers, and I'll keep that in mind when I do it. Okay, so that's the what ifs. What if you get to Canvas and it's just not working? Because as you learned this year, I hate Canvas, right? They skilled me for years on how to use Google Classroom, and then they said, just kidding. If this was on Google Classroom, there'd be no problems. I'm a slow learner at Canvas. I think it's fine. But what if you get there and it's not working? Well, guess what? Then email me. I'll put a plan B on Canvas if that happens. What other what ifs do we have? What if you can't make school for some reason? There's a makeup day or something, right? What if you forget everything? Well, try your best. What if my dog wants to come by and say hi? Hey, Shantae. Anyway, I think you'll be fine. What if your computer charger, your computer's not charged? Well, charge your computer tonight, people. That's what I have to tell you. Also, on Canvas for both AP Gov and US 1, I'm not separating it by block, right? I'm just going to have it open, which means you technically have access to it throughout the day. I'm going to publish it and unpublish it. Please only go on it when it's your block. Just for the time purposes. For me, it doesn't matter that I separate it because you're all going to know what it's about anyway. So it's not like it's a secret. So that's why I didn't separate it by block. All right. If there's anything else you think I'm missing, I'll check my email tonight. Give me a shot. Anyway, so first I'll do U.S. History 1 honors just for a minute. AP Gov, you can fast forward this part. So there's the two documents you are going to need to know. Frederick Douglass, the response to the colored delegation, and Thaddeus Stevens, his 1867 Reconstruction speech. So they were both people who wanted big measures taken for Reconstruction, right? Obviously, Thaddeus Stevens is a radical Republican, and obviously as well, Frederick Douglass, as he was trying to help level the playing field now for newly freed African Americans. So things to keep in mind. What were their arguments, right? Who were they talking to? What were they talking about? And because, like I said, think of it as glorified journal entry. Think also as you go through the documents and things like, how do these relate to news stories of today? We've looked at the New York Times basically every class, right? Also, what we did every class, how do these stories relate to STEM values, right? Keeping those in mind will help you. Now, for each of these, Frederick Douglass, you're going to write a 2-paragraph response. So think of it as 2 journal entries, right? That's 15 points. Thaddeus Stevens, you're going to write 1 paragraph, 10 points. Think of that as 1 journal entry. And for each one, there's 6 or 7 questions, and you want to answer either 2 or 3, each question says, of those questions in your response. So as you respond in a journal entry, make sure you just hit 2 or 3 of those points. You don't need to separate them, but on top. So suppose you're answering questions 2 and 3. First write 2, 3, and then write your 2 paragraphs or 1 paragraph. You know what I'm saying? So if you're answering 3 questions, right? 3, 6, 7, and then your 2 paragraphs. It just helps me so that I can get them graded like that day for you guys. So I know exactly what I'm looking for. All right. So you have if there's 6 or 7 questions and you only have to answer 2 or 3 of them, golden, people, no stress. And like I said, there's going to be some backup questions. Like, just think of every journal entry. I'd ask some specific questions and then something like, oh, but how does it relate to STEM values, or relate to something we've learned about or in the news? So you always have that to fall back on. Should you quote, like if you have the documents, should you use a passage of the quote? I'm sure, but don't be quoting 3 lines. I want to see more your words than their words. You can summarize it, paraphrase it, right? But being specific, don't just put they were both against slavery. Well, duh, right? You want to be more specific than that. So even if you don't quote them directly, please be very specific. And if it helps to quote them directly, then quote them directly. But I don't want to see 3 or 4 lines of their quotes. All right. Any other questions before we start? Like I said, I'll check my email tonight. Now, AP Gov, we are doing Washington's farewell address. Like I said, it used to be one of the very well read, one of the commonly read document. Maybe because we don't have a TLDR, we don't have the patience anymore. I don't know. Something to keep in mind, the original farewell address was written by James Madison when Washington thought he was going to be out after 1 term. And then they were like, yo, Georgie, you got to stick around for another term. So then Hamilton, because then him and Madison were not quite as close as they were before. Then Hamilton took Madison's speech and heavily edited it. So you see a lot more of Hamilton's sort of speak, type of wording in it than maybe Madison's. All right. So same, if you listen to the US one, similar idea. We're going to have 2 questions, and you want to think of these as glorified journal entries. The first one, you're writing 2 paragraphs. The second one, you're writing 1 paragraph. So the first question's worth 15 points. The second one is 10. So keep in mind, if you get a 3, you get 9 out of 10 points for the second question. Not bad, right? So for the first question, I want you to think, you're going to look at the documents and take out ideas from the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. So when you think spirit of 1776, think of the Declaration. Think life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. If you need to go back and look at the Declaration, go ahead and do that, right? All those Enlightenment ideals, the golden apple to Lincoln, right? You guys know I love that speech. Or not really speech, fragment, right? The we the people, that's more how does this government going to operate? And it's really we the people of the United States, right? It's really not a people's document. It's a federalist document, right? So how is the government going to operate? So in Washington's address, there's lots of warnings. You want to stay neutral. Be careful of political parties. There's going to be unprincipled men who try to gain power, and what they're going to do, right? Think of all these things. All right. So for the second question, you want to connect this to all the news events we covered all year long on the New York Times, C-SPAN, just within the units. So for the first question, you're going to sort of say, is this more of a spirit of 1776 document or a Constitution document? You can take two paragraphs and say, this is the way it's spirit of 1776 and this is the way it's Constitution. Or you can find two examples. These are two examples of how, it's spirit of 1776, and here's two examples of how it's Constitution. And for the second question, look at this document. I would specifically look at his warnings and connect it to anything we've done in the news. Similar to what I said to U.S. History 1, you can quote his speech. If you're going to quote the Constitution or Declaration, I'd be writing lines tonight, in your annotation packet. You don't need to. But I don't want to see 3 or 4 lines at a time of his farewell speech. You could just put like a 3 or 4 word thing and we'll know what he's about. You can paraphrase it, you can summarize it, but you want to be specific. So you want to just put like, he warned the people, and that relates to the news because bad things happen. Like, you want to be specific as possible. You don't want to say like, oh, this is like the Constitution because he's talking about the government and the Constitution is about the government. Well, be specific. Is it about the powers of the branches? Is it about checks and balances? Is it about veto power? Like, what about the Constitution is it? Is it about something in the Bill of Rights? Same thing for spirit of 1776. All right. So, like I said, you don't need to quote like lines and lines of it, but if you want to quote a little bit, that's fine. Okay. Same thing. This is like 2 glorified journal entries. The first question is like 2 journal entries. The second one is like 1. Don't be losing sleep over this, but make sure if you need to, if you don't have the patience to go through the whole Washington's farewell address, that's sad, but there's videos out there. There's summaries. Okay. There's each other. Chat with each other tonight. Send them an email, send them a text, whatever you guys do these days. And this is longer than I said it was going to be, so I'm going to turn it off. If you guys have questions, let me know. You will be fine. All right. Good luck. You got this.